Hi everybody, welcome into DodgerHeads presented by DodgerBlue.com. My name is Matthew Moreno. I'm joined tonight by Blake Williams. As you can see, this is a special episode we're recording from Chase Field. Just after a couple hours, I would say, maybe hour and a half or so after Game 3 of the NLDS, which the Dodgers unfortunately lost to the Diamondbacks, so they've been swept. It's their second year in a row where they've been eliminated in the NLDS, kind of had a little bit of a flat performance in October. Blake, let's kind of start with the beginning with Game 3. The decision to start Lance Lynn instead of Ryan Pepiot.
Yeah, it's a decision we questioned at the time when Dave Roberts first announced that Lance Lynn was going to pitch. We all had questions about it. Ryan Pepiot was arguably their best starter this season. He was pitching phenomenally from when he came back off the IL to when they got to the postseason here. So to get eliminated in a series and not use him, it's inexcusable. It was an interesting decision. They said he would be a big part of the plan, but he never even ended up warming up. So there's going to be a lot of discussions about that, but it's definitely an interesting decision there.
Yeah, and before we really dive into Ryan Pepiot and the bullpen usage and decisions, Lance Lynn, I think the obviously the concerns coming into the start were obvious. He'd given up, 44 home runs during the regular season, most in Major League Baseball, 6th most in a single season all-time in MLB history. The Diamondbacks had the roof open tonight. They, as maybe an effort to kind of help the ball carry. But initially, Lance Lynn pitched well. He ran into some early traffic, got out of it. He got a strikeout, was excited, did a gesture towards the crowd, kept the game scoreless. Then things sort of went haywire. As you alluded to, Ryan Pepiot wasn't somebody who was warming up. I felt the Dodgers were a little late in even getting any action in the bullpen, but I was in line waiting for the clubhouse to open. You were sitting in Dave Roberts' press conference. What did he say about that whole sequence of Lance Lynn staying in and ultimately giving up 4 solo home runs?
So they had Caleb Ferguson ready. That's what Dave Roberts said. It wasn't about getting a reliever up in time or wanting to keep Lance Lynn out there on the mound longer. It was they were hoping to get to Alek Thomas and get Lance Lynn through that run of righties. So Dave Roberts said if he could have predicted the future, he would have managed that differently. Obviously, it's different to say that in hindsight, but at the same time, Lance Lynn just gave up 2 homers. You had a pitcher ready, but Dave opted to keep in the righty and try and get through that run there. So it's just a poor decision there. You can't try and manage with urgency and then leave in a pitcher to give up 4 home runs in an elimination game. So there's a lot of questions there. Dave Roberts gave his reasoning. We can discuss that reasoning further, maybe at some other point. I'm sure it's going to be talked about a lot, but at the end of the day, you just can't leave in Lance Lynn to give up 4 homers on the mound when your season's on the line.
Yeah, and I think, you bring up a great point of urgency, and that's something you and I were both at the Dodgers All Access event about midway through the season, maybe a little bit halfway, earlier this summer at Dodger Stadium. And that was the first time Dave, when he was speaking to John Hartung and Orel Hershiser on the panel, that he said he was going to take a more urgent approach this year with the playoffs. And he said, that was going to be in terms of messaging to the team. That same idea was then brought up when the Dodgers were talking about their off days before the NLDS began and, having more urgency and creating more situational settings with their inter-squad games and all that. And, I don't think we could say that they didn't necessarily try. I think it's fair to question maybe how much intent there was there, and that's something that I think we'll get into, perhaps on Sunday night when we're on with Jeff, doing a little bit more of a synopsis and deeper dive into all this. But yes, the urgency question, I agree with you. Lance Lynn, you can't let him in. You can't leave him in the game to give up 4 home runs. The first one, if you still want him in because he had kind of pitched out of some traffic before that, sure. After he gives up 2, if somebody's not coming in right away, they better be hot and ready. And the inning just, it sort of got away from the Dodgers. Chase Field, Diamondbacks fans packed it. They had a true home field advantage tonight. I know during the regular season, Dodger fans typically travel very well, and it's probably 60-40 in their favor. That wasn't the case tonight, and so, the stadium was rocking. And then Dave did go to the bullpen, and to their credit, they kept the game close again, and it gave the Dodgers a chance. And just, it wasn't happening for the lineup for one reason or another. Kike Hernandez had a couple hits. Will Smith dropped down to the 5th spot tonight. I think he finished with 3 hits.
I believe so.
Chris Taylor had a hit. He almost ended up tying the game with a 2-run home run. But obviously, when you're talking Dodgers offense in the NLDS, Game 3, it's Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman. And they had another rough night. They finished a combined 1 for 21 in the series. What's your? I mean, there's no necessarily explanation. What's your take, your opinion, your view on just their struggles?
I mean, you need your superstars to hit. At the end of the day, that's all there is to it. Dave Roberts was asked about their struggles, and he basically said, "I don't know." That was pretty much all he said. So it's just, you need those guys to perform, and you're not going to win when they're not performing. We talked about it earlier this year when the offense was struggling. It kind of all goes back to Mookie and Freeman. So when they're not performing, the offense isn't going to perform. They came up in multiple spots where they had chances to tie the games, and they failed every single time. And you can't be successful doing that at the major league level. You're paying these guys to be your superstars. They're the leaders of the team, and you need the offense to come through when they're going to be the guys picking up the offense. And when they don't, you see what happens.
Yeah, and to their credit, in the clubhouse after the game, and again, we do have these post-game interviews up on our YouTube channel, Dodger Blue 1958, so definitely check those out. Both Freeman and Mookie took ownership of their struggles, said it wasn't good enough, and they understand that, and they needed to be better, and they just weren't. Let's kind of transition a little bit. Clayton Kershaw, he was lined up to pitch Game 4. That was the plan. Dave Roberts, between Game 1 and tonight, Game 3, Dave Roberts was asked, 5 times, is Clayton Kershaw going to start Game 4? Every single time he said yes. With the Dodgers getting eliminated, his season is obviously done. He's clearly on one-year contracts at this point, taking things year by year. He was asked after the loss in the clubhouse about his future. He predictably said he wasn't sure yet. But there was also one sort of interesting answer he gave. Can you fill us in a little bit on that?
Yeah, so Kershaw was asked about if there's anything different for him going into this offseason, and he thought about it for a second, and he kind of started out hesitantly to say, yeah, I think so, but I'm not really going to get into that right now. So it's definitely kind of alluding to him having more questions about his future and whether or not he pitches next season. We all know he's been dealing with the injury. It's probably more severe than the Dodgers want to admit about it. We saw it was affecting him, his command, his velocity. Just, he wasn't the same pitcher after he came back from that injury. So for him to kind of be a little more open about heading into the offseason, that's more than he would ever say about something like that. So it was definitely an interesting nugget he said before he kind of corrected himself and said, I'm not really going to talk about that.
Yeah, it was typical Kershaw fashion. He's never one, and understandably so, he's never one to really give too much information about his health or his future. But yeah, I agree with you. Obviously, we've discussed it both on our shows, on our drive out here, at other times throughout the season, and I think after seeing, his answer and just his sort of body language and demeanor, me personally, I would not be surprised if he retires after this season. I agree with you. I think his shoulder injury is certainly much more severe than he or the Dodgers have really let on. But yeah, it's going to be definitely one of the many storylines for the teams to follow. For the team this offseason, and we're of course going to be bringing you guys daily content, both on the video side, on the written side. So make sure you follow us online, Dodger Blue 1958 social media channels, and DodgerBlue.com, of course. Thanks for watching this, and that does it for myself and Blake from Chase Field.